60 Plus Racing Adventures is the iRacing league for drivers aged 60 years of age and over. Easy for me to say, apparently. With many different cars, models, and leagues across the week, there's so much good racing in 60 Plus Racing Adventures, and here on RaceSpotTV, we're bringing you GT3 live from Imola. David Haynes with Jeremy Scott, Ramiro Augustin Cisneros in production for you on RaceSpotTV as we look forward to 40 minutes of GT3 racing at Imola. And Jeremy, it looks gorgeous. Let's take a closer look.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous indeed. Of course, one of the classic racetracks in Europe. And it is centered around Imola, Italy as well. So it's interesting to see. If you get a look around, you get to see some people actually watching from the balconies of the races. Of the races, doesn't matter what it is. The people of this town love their racing. I'm excited for one because the chicanes are going to make things just a little bit more interesting for the GT3 driver.
Circuit of two halves, an incredibly long front straight, and then some twisty chicanes, some challenges at Acqua Minerale and Variante Alta. This is the schedule so far in GT3 for 60 Plus Racing Adventures. It all kicked off at Laguna Seca, then they went to the formidable Nordschleife, Circuit Manicourt, Spa-Francorchamps, Silverstone, Fuji, in Italy at Monza a week ago, now in Imola a little bit further south. And that's where we find ourselves for round 8 with Red Bull Ring, Road America, Zandvoort, and a finale at Watkins Glen still to come. In the standings, it's oh so close at the top. John Payne just a few points clear of Riccardo Alita, David Riley, Eugene Clark, Steve O'Malley, Remigio De Pasqua, Gianni Raspaldo, Greg Gilman, Ragnar Wisloff, Willie Molesby, Franz Sturm, and Mike Grandy as our top 12 in the points, who is going to come away with a big haul of points after today's race at Imola. We're about to find out, but before we find out who's taking points from the racing, let's look at qualifying to see how they'll line up on the grid. That's live right now.
Yeah, and of course, John Payne, one of the drivers who's up near the front with a handful of wins. By my count, it's 3 wins so far this year, alongside Ragnar Wisloff, who has 3 wins as well. Now, here's what's interesting too, is that we haven't seen the drops yet. So the points, yeah, they mean a lot, but Ragnar winning as much as he's been out there. So that's what's going to be interesting to see what happens as we see John Payne starting his flying and that number 2 Yingling Porsche around the circuit. Yeah, it is definitely a tale of 2 circuits with the long straights in one half and the tight twisty bits in the other. Of course, right here, when you go left, you're going to start to go uphill. So it's going to make things just a little bit challenging. You got to get on that gas as fast as you can.
Qualifying format is it's a 10-minute session, but you only are allowed 2 flying laps to count to how it will place you on the grid. John Payne hasn't completed one just yet. He's had his outlap. He's on his first of 2 flying laps, scrubbing off the speed as you descend and turn through Acqua Minerale, then pitch back up the hill to Variante Alta, the high chicane. That's exactly where it is, one of the highest points of the circuit here, with some of the highest curbs on the circuit. Steve O'Malley is about to negotiate them with his McLaren in a very late 90s, early 2000s type of McLaren livery. And then David Riley gets his Acura just a little bit squirrely coming out of that chicane. We then head downhill to a really big braking zone into the double left-handers at Ravazza that close out the lap on this configuration. There used to be another chicane between Ravazza and the start-finish line, but renovations here in the 2000s and the 2010s give us the current pit lane and current layout that we have, which is a massively, massively long front straight here that seems to go on and on to the braking zone of the Tamburello chicane up front. Qualifying times come in. John Payne goes to the top. The driver we're looking at here, David Riley, slots into 3rd for the moment.
You don't normally see a pit straight that long here in Europe. Here's Riccardo Alita coming across the line to start. Let's see what happens here. Alita looks like that he is 12th fastest so far.
And more times come in. On a bit of home turf, Remigio De Pasqua goes to second. Bruce Poole, one of the drivers, yet to set a time. He's in a bit of a home favourite of a car. It's the Ferrari 296 GT3, actually built in France by Oreca, but a beautiful, beautiful Ferrari that it is. And Bruce Poole has done many, many races across different leagues and different cars in 60-plus racing adventures. Here today in the GT3, negotiating that Variante Alta. And how do his sectors stack up? Sector 143. It's tracking pretty well for him, as Ragnar Wisloff up top is tracking for yet more improvement. But Bruce Poole needs to be careful with the track limits here in Ravazza. Gets a bit of that apex curve, but don't go too wide out the exit there. With just 2 laps, I'd say you want to make them count, but Bruce Poole is practicing his entry. No black flags, no penalties, just an interesting choice there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting choice to do that in qualifying. So we'll see if he can get another lap in here momentarily. Oh, a spin from Respaldo. That's not good. Of course, his lap, of course, will not count now as the C falls down to 14th. Here's JC Hay across the line, 15th fastest.
Yep, with those just 2 laps allowed in the session, you're seeing quite a few drivers looking to have completed both of them at the moment. Ragnar Wisloff up top, Mike Grandy is going to struggle through the Villeneuve chicane, and he might have copped one of those black and yellow anti-cut curbs that can be oh so tough. Ragnar Wisloff here, I'm pretty sure he's done 2 of his 2 laps, and his best was a 1 minute 43.6. Still pushing on in his Porsche 911 GT3R, and the Team Vikings paint therein. Currently 0.3 of a second ahead of Remigio De Pasqua, and then that's just fractionally ahead of John Payne on the second row alongside Mike Grandy. Of the 18 drivers present, 16 have put down times at the moment. Bruce Poole was on one and then pitted, which was a little confusing to us, and Richard McClure doesn't seem to be out on track at the moment. So that's the other 16 drivers that have set times for the moment. Just to Ragnar Wisloff's right there is where Dale Jr. and Steve Myers are around Imola in a shed. Interesting.
That is interesting. That's actually a pretty neat little Easter egg there.
See that shed right there beside the track?
Okay. Yeah. That's cool.
That's where Dale Jr. is hanging out and eating his pizza and his pasta and drinking his Aperol Spritz.
Respaldo back out for another lap. So far, 2.9 seconds off the pace in 15th. Let's see if he's going to continue on. Gianni Respaldo in the number 48 Acura. Absolutely lovely color, lovely looking car as well. Down across the line, that's a 48.0 for the number 48.
And the Acura/Honda NSX GT3 actually is made in Italy by JAS Motorsport, who also make the Honda TCR cars there. So somehow more Italian than the Ferrari, depending on how you look at it. But I'm pretty sure the engine blocks come from Japan for these, whereas they do come from Italy for the Ferrari. David Riley's right in the middle of the field, but just ahead of Pierre Benetze.
That makes sense. I mean, those NSXs kind of do look like the I don't know if I'd say the 488s, but they almost have a Ferrari look to them if you look quickly.
Yeah, certainly do. So I'm seeing only McClure and Poole drivers with times that they could still put down, laps still in their bank and in their pocket. And I'd say it's going to stay out and continue practicing on what's a very hot track now I look at it. 43 degrees Celsius on that track, so the sun's beating down on Imola today. And relatively cool enough in the air, lovely enough in the air, but hot on the track with very little wind as it's clear skies over the town of Imola.
Yeah, with about 30 seconds left, we're going to start to see some drivers come in as Bennett goes a couple wheels off there. through Ravazza. And going to decide to call it into the pit. So is Respaldo. So all these drivers on their, if they haven't qualified yet, they're on their waning couple of corners as qualifying just about ready to come to close. And no surprise with who's provisionally up top.
Yeah, shouldn't be a big surprise. The front row is going to be Ragnar Wisloff and Remigio De Pasqua. Time runs out on the clock for qualifying right about now, and it locks in this grid for our 40-minute race. Ragnar Wisloff, Remigio De Pasqua as the front row, John Payne and Mike Grandy on row number 2. Every row in the top 3 has a Porsche, with Bruce Granheim and Ricardo Alita 5th and 6th for the rolling start. David Riley in 7th will be alongside Pierre Binetz in 8th. Franz Josef Sturm in 9th, with Eugene Clark in 10th. Wally Molesby 11th. Peter Holstrom 12th. Might be our best Ferrari that I've seen there. Certainly that's what the locals will be cheering for. Jerry Kerr 13th, Steve O'Malley 14th, Gianni Respaldo 15th, JC Hayes 16th, but we still might get Richard McClure and Bruce Poole 17th and 18th. It looks absolutely spectacular from here. There's so many great little things around the circuit, great things inside of the circuit. The Athletics Club operates inside of the circuit. Do you know another racetrack that has an athletics club inside of it?
I can't think of any. This is such a unique circuit.
Inside of Turn 5 at Albert Park is the stadium that is home to Australian athletics, and many an Olympian has trained there at Albert Park. We're rolling on this truncated formation lap with our front row drivers of Ragnar Wisloff and Remigio De Pasqua, who are going to be pedaling as fast as their little legs can.
Well, also now that I think about it too, Hermanos Rodriguez, that little last chicane part, used to be a baseball stadium too.
And there's some other sporting facilities inside of there. There's a soccer club inside of Circuit Le Mans. Many, many interesting things to point out. There's a pizza restaurant inside of the track here. There's a nightclub just outside of it. And there's those apartments at Ravazza that get such an amazing view. I want one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love seeing, the shots from Ravazza, and you see the residents just sitting out there, flying their Tifosi flags and watching any kind of racing going on. The fans love Imola here.
That Porsche pace car's about to pull in, but it'll still be a Porsche leading the field with Ragnar Wisloff on pole position in the 992 generation GT3R. They're awaiting a green flag to unleash the races for 40 minutes at Imola in 60-plus Racing Adventures GT3 League. And just before the green flag waves, Ragnar Wisloff puts flat 6 power to the ground and accelerates us for the first time towards the Tamburello chicane. He sees John Payne go up a spot into second as well. It's caught De Pasqua napping a little bit. Those two will go side by side into the first corners, but Payne stays in front, going from third on the grid to second after the first chicane. It's Porsche's 1-2.
Yeah, and of course, we're seeing John Payne trying to hold off all comers right behind through Variante Villeneuve and heading into the hairpin at Tosa. So far, so good. Everybody single file as De Pasqua falls back just a little bit. It's Wisloff, Payne, De Pasqua, 1, 2, 3, as battles kind of sorting themselves out. A little bit of an endurance race for these drivers, as it is that 40-minute time limit race. We see the number 088 of Alita sitting there, and Riley falling back as well. What happened to the 14?
Well, we got all 18 drivers start the race, but apparently David Riley's internet isn't keeping up for him. One of the drivers that we saw in the Acura NSX GT3, he is tumbling down the order, and if he doesn't rejoin quickly, he will be losing those spots and won't rejoin where he disappeared from. Ragnar Wisloff, similar? Yeah, okay.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So appears to have come back. There's a few drivers having some issues. Peter Holstrom and Jerry Kerr have slowdown penalties, presumably from cutting some chicanes there, be it at You can do it very easily, I think, coming through Aqua Minerale. Ragnar Wisloff is back, and the first lap is completed. He leads John Payne, Remigio De Pasqua, Bruce Granheim, Mike Grandy. Everyone is back, but I saw 4 or 5 drivers suddenly have some quality issues with their internet connection. This is for 4th, the Corvette. Rumbling V8 of Bruce Granheim just holding off Mike Grandy.
Yeah, that's kind of weird to see so many drivers have so many connection issues, but we're on board with Mike Grandy as he reels in the Corvette of Bruce Granheim. Grandy, of course, in the Trackhouse WeatherTech liveried Acura, Honda, the NSX. I like how it has the paint tint to it as well, easier to spot. So it makes life a little bit easier for those of us calling the race. But look at this battle for the lead between Wisloff and Payne. Payne, who's both have won 3 races, and somebody's trying to get 4th, and who's it going to be? We'll find out here in about 37 minutes time, but Payne, he's all on the back of Wisloff there, trying to make things just a little bit difficult.
Yeah, John Payne leading the championship at the moment with Ragnar Wisloff 9th in those points. Ragnar Wisloff was leading qualifying, but as we get into some race pace, John Payne is looking mighty, mighty strong. This is those big curbs that they launch across at Variante Alta. Those have actually been flattened a little bit since the iRacing scan here, but there's very few other adjustments to the racetrack. Still feels like a relatively recent iRacing edition, but I don't want to look at it, probably 2016 or 2017. Joe De Pasqua staying with them as well, but I can sense this top 2 heating up. John Payne looks like he wants this.
Yeah, he definitely wants it, but he doesn't want to burn off the tires too soon because it's still a long race. We're on board with Payne right now, heading into Tamburello, and he's got a good draft, but Wisloff going to defend that inside, force John Payne to go the long way around at least the first part of Tamburello. Payne's going to sit back just a little bit, but it's kind of helping De Pasqua catch up heading towards Villeneuve.
Slipstream looked pretty monumental there. Now, I know John Payne got a good run off the second Ravazza, but by the time they got up to 6th gear, it looked like he was really pulling speed and distance out of race leader Ragnar Wisloff, who is amply defending for the moment into the Tamburello chicane and into Tosa. He's had to just fend off John Payne slightly. And if this starts to kick off, I can foresee De Pasqua getting a little bit closer in this group as well. Track conditions same as they were for qualifying. No wind, clear skies, very, very hot track. Battles top of your screen, battles bottom of your screen with Ricardo Alita and Pierre Binet.
Yeah, so Porsche's involved in all sorts of battles. No surprise that De Pasqua is keeping up either with this Wisloff-Payne battle, as we have seen how quick De Pasqua was in practice today. But Pierre Binet trying to keep up in his McLaren to Alita. It seems like that the Porsches, David, are actually handling this track quite nicely.
I think the hotter the track gets, the slipperier the track gets, the better it is for the Porsches that typically have very good traction. John Payne has very good traction, 1 car length behind Ragnar Wisloff and closing. Ragnar Wisloff staying a little bit to the left-hand side of the track so that he can demand the inside line into the Tamburello chicane. John Payne is going to look around that outside. That's an opportunity that usually closes off, trying to switch one way, switch back the other, get as much speed as possible out of this third part of Tamburello and force Wisloff to defend, heading down into the Villeneuve chicane. With all of this defending, De Pasqua is getting really way much closer. And Payne gets another good run, so Wisloff has to defend into Tosa, but this is round the outside, nose in front. Is there any traction out there, or is it just marbles for John Payne? I think he didn't find the grip he was hoping for, and Wisloff stays in front, but this is, at least on the stopwatch, proving quite costly.
Yeah, this is exactly what De Pasqua wanted once Wisloff got out front early on. John Payne, he was all over that back bumper going into Villeneuve. Now as the field works their way around Aqua Minerale and in towards Variante Alta. It's the 3-car battle for the lead. They've also opened up a 3.5 second lead over the 4th place Bruce Granheim. Of course, also still kind of keeping an eye on that battle for 6th place. And that's kind of died down. This is basically our battle of the race right now. You're on the back of De Pasqua in that beautiful McLaren heading into Ravazza. Let's see if anybody has anything through here.
Indeed. So we've had Jerry Kerr in 18th make a pit stop, 13.8 seconds. This is the view backwards from the race leader, and John Payne just inching closer. Now really inching closer, trying to make a switch to get to the inside of Tamburello. Looking back around the outside, he's seen every angle of Ragnar Wisloff except in his mirrors. So this is getting frustrating potentially for John Payne at the moment. A few other drivers pitting: Wally Molesby, David Riley, and Peter Holstrom.
The drivers getting their pit stops out of the way early. Of course, now Wisloff and Payne in a battle by themselves. We see Molesby into the pits, as it looks like that Riley with a 9.8 second pit stop. Molesby 13 seconds. Holstrom trying to get out of pit lane here shortly. Quick pits, though, out of Riley, which is kind of interesting to say the least. We're still watching this battle. Oh, look at that. Nice and tight by Wisloff, trying to keep John Payne behind him. Payne just caught up to Wisloff, but passing him is going to be absolutely difficult. These two are the ones with the most wins so far this season in the GT3 class, with Wisloff winning at Laguna, Spa, and last time out at Monza. Payne at the Nordschleife, Magny-Cours, and Fuji International.
It's a long pit lane here at Imola, but it is a quick one at 80 kilometers an hour. So we ride on board with 2nd place, and we look at where I'm going to retire to, and I can just sit on my balcony all day, watch race cars testing, watch Formula One for as long as their contract lasts, watch World Endurance Championship, European Le Mans Series for as long as their contracts last. Wisloff, which way does John Payne go? He goes to the left, and there's almost a little bit of a contact between them. Burnett will pit from behind this group, but that was touch and go. Was there going to be a car's width there? John Payne thought so. Ragnar Wisloff told him, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, and these guys really got to watch themselves, because they can get a point for no instant points, so hopefully they didn't get any. Same goes for Paul Amos, lap Pierre Burnett into the pits, but we got our eye on this battle between Wisloff and Payne. It seems like Ravazza is the place where Wisloff tries to get away, but Payne able to get on the gas. A little wiggle there coming out of Tosa. But that's given station to De Pasqua to keep up just a little bit. But as I was saying, the two drivers, Wisloff and Payne, they're basically about the same, but watch through Ravazza. There's something about Wisloff. He's able to get through there just a little bit quicker.
John Payne will be looking to keep the blowtorch on and try to force a mistake out of Ragnar Wisloff, but it is not happening just yet. Aqua Minerale might have stood a chance of having Wisloff go in a little hot and a little wide and maybe get one of the off tracks or slowdown penalties or something there. Didn't happen. Different lines into Ravazza for our leading 3. And it's off this second part of Ravazza that John Payne looked really strong. Uses a little more of the exit curb typically. Perhaps uses a little too much of the exit curb. But once again, he's closing down Ragnar Wisloff. Already 3 kilometers an hour faster in the slipstream right now. Heading towards a peak speed of over 260 kilometers an hour for these guys. John Payne, can he commit all the way around the outside here? He's going to try and then cut back. So again, can't get to the inside, and he can't commit around the outside, and he has to sit behind the green and blue machine again. Gianni Rispaldo, the next driver to pit. Our top 5 is looking super close for the moment.
Yeah, Wisloff knows where Payne wants to pass, and of course he doesn't make it easy with a nice defense into those braking zones. And of course, the past couple of laps, we've seen Tosa, the exit Tosa, be a thorn in the side of John Payne. Well, De Pasqua is now caught up to that battle for the lead once again. He's 0.8 of a second behind Wisloff, and each driver about 0.4 of a second apart from each other. as pit stops well underway. Respaldo, 13.4 seconds in and out of the box. It gives Malsby a chance to get up to about 14th. So one has to question when these three will have to make their pit stop as we're heading into Aqua Minerale. I've got to say, this is such a great battle here. I should say Variante Alta out of Aqua Minerale. But nonetheless, Whistler, bigger lead than we've seen him heading into Ravazza. And that's where it seems like he's at his fastest.
Yes, indeed. So think about my logic on this. If some of the drivers have pitted as early as lap 4 or 5, surely these drivers could go until there is 4 or 5 laps left in the race, depending on fuel tank size and the starting fuel.
So you're saying that the top three, we could see them in as late as 10 minutes to go. I like that logic. That's actually a good thought right there.
That's what I'm going to hold to until it's inevitably proven wrong. So that's how I'm going to go about it. Bruce Poole pits. So now you have 11th through to 18th that have made pit stops, and 1st to 10th that haven't yet. Richard McClure had no qualifying time, started very deep in the field, so now he's up to 10th for the moment, while some others have stopped. McClure's pace isn't bad. If your leaders are doing 1 minute 44.6, he's doing 145s down there as well, so maybe him running long, he'll actually overcut a handful of cars that don't have that lap pace and have stopped somewhat earlier. John Payne is all over Ragnar Wisloff for the moment, and side by side heading into Variante Alta. They're absolutely going to be doors into each other. Ragnar Wisloff just keeps John Payne on the outside. Payne has a wiggle again on power. Does the Pasqua eventually get tired of this with his McLaren? Or he's going to try to look for the inside of Ravazza, making a switch on John Payne, but then braking a little bit earlier in that sharply descending downhill braking zone.
Yeah, smart move by De Pasqua as tries to get around John Payne, but thinks better of it, breaking into that downhill braking zone. And now Payne, that's the furthest back we've seen him off of Wisloff since the start. So Wisloff might be able to open up that gap going through Tamburello, which will help him out. But now the three-way battle for third has turned into, first I should say, has turned into a two-car battle for second place. As now Payne actually closes up and proves me wrong out of Tamburello through Villeneuve. And you look back there, you also have the battle for fourth between Grandy and Granheim.
Yeah, so Grandy ahead of Granheim for the moment, pulling just a tiny bit more space on him than previously. The top 5 go up the hill right now. Ricardo Elites are not too far behind. Actually had a pretty good lap last time, quicker than Granheim, who lost out and lost positions, and John Payne's gone wide at Aqua Minerale. He's going to drop out of second place. Remigio de Pasqua goes into second, and John Payne has massively overshot and has a slowdown penalty that he hasn't cleared yet. So he's got more time to lose and more pain to take.
I like what you did there, a little play on words, but yeah, that was not good out of Payne, as now that he went from battling for the lead to falling back. Here's the replay of that as, yep, there we go, right off course, just a little bit and just into the gravel trap, able to get back out. But yeah, that slowdown penalty really going to hurt him as he decides that now is a perfect time to come into the pits. Also joining him are Grandy and Granheim.
Third, fourth, fifth into the lane. You've got the pit boxes here that seem to go on forever. Ricardo Elisa moves up to third place for the moment, and then there's a little kink in the middle of the pit lane here, but it's not the end of the pit lane. The pit lane keeps going, and massive overshoot of his pit stall for Mike Grandy. This might let Bruce Granheim get back ahead in that battle that they were having. Most of the pit stops have been about 10 seconds, and that's basically exactly what we get from John Payne. Bruce Granheim 13 seconds, Mike Grandy 11. I think manages to just get away with overshooting his pit box like he did because of how much longer Bruce Granheim's stop was. Your top 7 drivers haven't stopped yet. John Payne's the highest running driver that has. A very sharp 10-second stop right now.
Yeah, that was not good. And yeah, luck was on the side of Mike Grandy. Battle for 6th place heats up between Steve O'Malley and Richard McClure. It's McLaren over Porsche for the time being, heading into Petrella as they go little wiggle out of that West McLaren. I gotta say, I do like the paint scheme and how they're able to take the old Mercedes McLaren livery onto that McLaren. You don't see enough of that, which for good reason, obviously, but you can always alter it.
Kids, smoking cigarettes is bad and it's not cool, but this livery is pretty cool. I love when you take the font and you write the driver's name on the side, a la David Coulthard, Mika Hakkinen, Kimi Räikkönen. If he had Steve on the side, that would be simply the perfect McLaren. And there's a lot going on for Richard McClure back here. Remember, no qualifying time, but seems to have a lot of pace. Hasn't cleared his pit stop yet, but has closed up on the back. Steve O'Malley, who's headed for pit lane. McClure stays out, and I think McClure could gain a lot of spots by the end of this race with an overcut. If he gets clean air, he might be able to make some positions. I think John Payne is banking on using some clean air to try to undercut in this case, Ragnar Wisloff. So if Wisloff doesn't come in this lap, which he hasn't, Wisloff has not responded to John Payne's pit stop. And if there's 2 or 3 or 4 laps offset between them, I think John Payne might have the pace in the clean air that Ragnar Wisloff finds himself, while able to defend on the track, unable to defend on the timesheet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the different strategies between Wisloff and Payne here. We see Payne basically in land by himself, so he can get out there, run fast laps, so that way when Wisloff does come out, we'll see that maybe he might be ahead of, he might be behind Payne.
So we haven't had a flying lap for John Payne since his pit stop. This is his first after his out lap from the pit stall a lap ago. The battle is back on here between Mike Grandy and Bruce Granheim. Mike Grandy overshot his pit box, had to reverse in pit lane, lost 2 seconds from that, but Bruce Granheim's fuel service was 2 seconds longer, so they end up right back where they were. Grandy just ahead of Granheim, but they've ended up a bit further behind John Payne because they followed him into pit lane directly, but now they're about 6.5 seconds behind. So Payne has executed that pit stop very well. What he didn't execute particularly well was Aqua Minerale on the lap before. In too hot to the first curved kink braking zone part. The outside tyres in the grass. Suddenly you can't turn and you can't brake. The 2 things you need to be doing in Aqua Minerale to make the tightening next part of the corner.
And I'm just trying to get my head around. I think it was, I think David, 3 second between Payne and Grandy and Granheim for their pit stop times?
Yes, in terms of pit lane transit times, yes.
So if we're going by that logic, each second off the in the pits is going to cost you about 2 extra seconds on the track. If we're going by this logic, as we see the last pit stop time, fastest pit stop, David Riley, 9.8 seconds, but 1 second, 3. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what went wrong. But then again, remember, Grandy also had that botched pit stop where he overshot his pit, had to back up and get ready for his Granheim goes around Grandy for 8th place. Battle for 4th also heats up as well.
Yeah, drama between Bruce Granheim and Mike Grandy. Bruce Granheim moves his Corvette ahead. Has there been contact between the 2 of them, or has Mike Grandy just had an issue, maybe repeated John Payne's exploits? Now look at this. The pink and purple Acura has lost a spot and lost a fair bit of time earlier on in this lap.
Yeah, that's something happened there, and it looked like it may have happened somewhere around Tamburello. Actually, my mistake. It's coming out of Villeneuve where the incident happened, and a couple wheels off, and that's all it usually takes.
Yeah, so he was all over the painted concrete on the far side of the curb coming out of Villeneuve, looked a little out of sorts, and then maybe it's disrupted him and his line into Tosa, where he's just rotated the car and spun around. Doesn't look to have done any damage, but definitely lost one spot, lost a little bit of time, and he'll need to be careful until he clears off those tyres. With 18 minutes left in 60 Plus Racing Adventures GT3 League from Imola, the top 6 drivers haven't pitted yet, including Ragnar Wisloff, who's running long. His last lap, a 144.3, while John Payne's last lap, a 143.8. Half a second quicker. Even with the time that John Payne lost earlier, if he can be half a second a lap quicker for 3, 4, 5 laps offset from Ragnar Wisloff, it's really going to make these things difficult for Ragnar, who's been off. This could be costing the race win to Ragnar Wisloff at Variante Alta. He's off the road, surely costing him more time than John Payne lost at Aqua Minerale. Payne's got more pace, and he's made less costly mistakes. Wisloff into the chicane here, just a pendulum effect from one apex to the other in the change of direction. Not even the ride over the curb that I was expecting. It's a hot and slippery track. And Ragnar Wisloff is out of the lead. Remigio de Pasqua leads the race.
That is not what Wisloff wanted. And of course, he is still out on circuit. De Pasqua has basically gained 8 seconds as he was a second behind Wisloff. So that just, man, one has to wonder what happens. You see the top 6 still have yet to pit, and it's going to be here shortly that they're going to have to make that decision on when they need to hit their pit box, as it looks like McClure might be in the pits.
Yep, from 17th on the grid, Richard McClure had run pretty long, made some good progress. He makes his pit stop now. So looking at the race leader, and then to McClure leaving his pit stall after 11 to 12 seconds. So here's some of the drivers that are going to still be ahead of Richard McClure, because you see Pierre Bennett, David Riley go past, Wally Molesby go past. McClure will try to get up to speed and stay ahead of Steve O'Malley, who he was racing for position before the pit stops and now is still ahead of after the pit stop. So that's been pretty successful for Richard McClure, because he has overcut Steve O'Malley in the pits. 3 cars are off the road at Tamburello. Gianni Rispaldo, Bruce Poole and Jerry Kerr. Whoa. What has happened there? JC Hay is going to swallow them up. JC Hay's going to make 3 positions exiting Tamburello as 3 drivers have run off the road. He's put this McLaren ahead of all 3 of those cars behind, and now more dramas for Rispaldo as he gets a bad ride over the curb. Bruce Poole, Jerry Kerr go ahead of him, and Peter Holstrom is just behind as well. This track looks super slippery all of a sudden.
As Stoom comes into the pits from 5th place, going to be interesting to see the replay on that one, because you don't normally see that many cars go off, and yet a little bit of debris. Somebody went off there, and because there's a replay from JC Hay, and it looks like he capitalizes on 3, maybe 4 positions.
Yeah, I think Rispaldo went off first. Bruce Poole and Jerry Kerr followed him, and JC Hay said, I'm going to stay on the track, past the lot of them. Frank Joseph Sturm completes his stop, and Rispaldo definitely looking like he's struggling with that. So here he is. Oh no, maybe this is what does it. He gets a little hit from behind, and they both run off wide. The 3rd car follows them in.
Yeah, that's just a sympathy off right there. So, yeah, and there goes JC Hay just around everybody.
Slowdowns.
Yeah. They'll do it.
I was wondering why they didn't get up to speed as quickly as I thought they should have, and we're going to have more drama down there as well. Oh, it's all going on. 14 minutes to go. Remigio de Pasqua leads and is not looking to pit just yet. Same for Ragnar Wisloff, Ricardo Alita, and Eugene Clark. John Payne is in 5th, has made his pit stop already, is lapping quicker than Remigio de Pasqua can as well. And there's Alita in third. He is going to stop.
Yeah, perfect timing for Alita because, we're just a couple of minutes away from pit stops ending. So we'll see what happens here as he gets into his box and hits his marks with the Pasqua still with that heavy lead, 3-4. Let's see, we've seen times around that, and there's John Payne sitting in fourth place. So he's just getting right for Clark, Wisloff, and Pasqua to all get their pit stops here underway.
In a term that I like to use a lot, I do believe that John Payne has the net race lead with 3 drivers still owing us pit stops and how close John Payne still is to them. Alita is going to be just behind Mike Grandy by the looks of things. And with 7 laps to go, we might be getting towards the end of how long some of these drivers can run before they need to stop. I mean, the Alta not looking like any problem for Remigio de Pasqua at all. I see this quite commonly in a lot of races where in the first sort of 3, 4, 5 minutes you go, oh, this car looks really strong. Porsche 911 looks really strong. And then everyone, gets heat into their tires, keeps putting heat into their tires, begins to overheat their tires a little bit, and another car looks strong. And these McLarens have looked absolutely planted the longer the race has gone on. Think of how many positions JC Hay made up when everyone else looked a little sketchy, when the Acuras looked like they were had poor balance, the Porsches looked like they had poor balance. Ragnar Wisloff is pitting. Is that 80 k's an hour? It's a very quick 80 k's an hour, but he's all good. He's all good.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you're getting on your marks. There's Eugene Clark, so we've got one more driver that still needs to pit, and of course the gap, but basically the gap between De Pasqua and Payne definitely might be shorter than the delta. We'll see here in just a couple of minutes as Wisloff 10.4 seconds. So maybe the delta is there. We'll find out. Of course, as we know, it's going to take some time for De Pasqua to get up to speed. He's got to be pitting here shortly as he's nearing the end of this stint.
Yeah, so Ragnar Wisloff had got rolling in pit lane, but not to the exit when John Payne went past and ahead of him and up into P2. Pit stop transit time for everyone's about 40 seconds, and John Payne is only 33 and a half behind Remigio de Pasqua at the moment. But what John Payne needs to do is keep it on the road and have no repeat of what we had at Aqua Minerale a couple of laps ago. And now that he's had the clean air, I think he's far more consistent, perhaps getting a little frustrated behind Ragnar Wisloff earlier in the race, perhaps just losing a little sight of his markers and how he wants to drive the track when he was right in behind Ragnar Wisloff. Thoroughly covered off Ragnar for sure, as Remigio de Pasqua will pit from the race lead. The last driver to pit. Can he get in, fueled, and get out and still be competitive with where John Payne is on track? I suspect it could be quite close. De Pasqua has made no mistakes like John Payne has, but John Payne, when he's on it, is much faster. Fastest lap of the race belongs to John Payne, and his pace has been consistent. There's De Pasqua just getting his fuel. Fuel's done. De Pasqua is rolling towards pit exit, but John Payne is going faster than 200 kilometers an hour, closing down that gap and that margin, and will be very neck and neck with De Pasqua heading down towards Tamburello. But that speed on the pit straight versus that speed accelerating from 80 k's an hour, John Payne leads by 2 seconds with 10 minutes to go.
And that was what John Payne needed. Mistake be darned. He is back. He is into the lead, heading through Tamburello, now going into Villeneuve. This is exactly what he needed. But let's see what De Pasqua has for him as he starts to close that gap just a little bit. So we may have a race on our hands, because remember, De Pasqua has a little bit fresher tires than Payne. But we've also seen that the McLaren, not very good at the beginning of the stint, gets better and better as the race goes on. I wonder if 9 minutes might not be enough, David, for De Pasqua to catch up to Payne and maybe make a move there for the win.
If it was just a little bit closer, I could see the pressure from De Pasqua just maybe getting to John Payne, but with this margin, Payne has just a lap or two to pull that gap to settle, and John Payne's best is about 0.3 of a second quicker than De Pasqua's best. But that roll through pit lane for De Pasqua might have cooled off his tyres a little bit. There might be a lap here, a lap or two, where De Pasqua can push a little more than John Payne, who's been 8 laps since his pit stop, will have heated up those tyres again on this aggressively hot surface, 43 degrees Celsius. So maybe De Pasqua has just a lap here where he can make John Payne drive a little scruffy. Every driver has made their pit stops, and the driver who's gained the most positions is Richard McClure. He's +5, but his last lap a little scruffy, just as he was maybe going to be able to close in on Wally Molesby. Pierre Bennett and Eugene Clark will battle in these final minutes of the race. So will JC Hay, Jerry Kerr, Peter Holstrom, and Gianni Rispaldo. The last 4 drivers on track are actually so close to each other there with the battle that we've previously seen.
And with JC Hay able to capitalizing on Kerr, Hallstrom's, and Rispaldo's mistakes through Tamburello, he has not been able to shake a leg to get him away from him. This is looking heading into Ravazza. Let's, of course, ahead of them as well. It looks like it is Bruce Poole as well. So Hay may be able to catch up to Poole and make that a 5-car battle for position. Depending on if anybody gets any wheels off, it was 7 minutes ago. Anything can happen as we see Kerr falling back just a little bit into the clutches of Hallstrom. And lots going on here. Bennett and Clark, as he also mentioned, too, right now in 7th and 8th for that position. So plenty of battles to look around here in this round of GT3 racing.
Up at 7th and 8th with Bennett in the McLaren and Eugene Clark in the Porsche. They head over the crest. Last lap, they were both quicker than Ricardo Alita up the road in 6th, who you can see not too far away. So that's promising for Bennett and Eugene Clark. Franz Josef Sturm just behind them, matching their pace as well. So it's all very close, and no one can afford to misstep in 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th with their pit stops already away and just racing to the end of this one. John Payne crosses the start-finish line, and I think it's 4 more laps. So when Eugene Clark, who we're on board with, crosses the start-finish line, will be 4 more laps for him. He goes up through the gears and all the way to his tallest in 6th gear. Currently doing 255, 257, 260 k's an hour before he needs to brake to negotiate the Tamburello chicane. He doesn't run as wide through the 2nd apex. That lets him stay full throttle through the 3rd apex. Some cars can really easily go flat out through that 3rd apex. Others, you need to hold yourself a little tight through the 2nd part to maximize the 3rd, and it requires sort of patience to not try to bite all of the speed early through the complex and to flow your speed through the middle and out rather than just bombing in deep.
David, I've been watching this gap between Payne and De Pasqua also, and that's starting to shrink. And so that's going to be interesting to see here in the next couple of laps. It's now down to 1.1 seconds, down from about, 2 seconds when De Pasqua came out of the pits. With 4:52 left, I think that these two are going to be locked in this battle. Coming around Ravazza as Payne and De Pasqua right now your leaders, clocking back another lap. 4 minutes and 39 seconds left, so that's about 3 laps left if I'm calculating correctly.
Yeah, 3 to go. Last lap was Remigio De Pasqua's best lap of the race. This one he's just completed now. Not quite as quick, but still fractionally quicker than John Payne, and able to get within 1 second. De Pasqua has a fire lit underneath him, and if he can get to the race lead, it'd make the whole field a Team Italian Turtles sandwich between De Pasqua and Gianni Rispaldo at the moment. This is the sector-by-sector breakdown. So Sector 1 goes from the start-finish line through Tamburello, Villeneuve, and to the exit of Tosa, well, actually, sort of top of the hill entrance of Piratella. Sector 1, as you can see, at 42 seconds is very long. Sector 2 is mainly just through Piratella and Aqua Minerale, and Sector 3 is from exit of Aqua Minerale through Variante Alta and across the start-finish line. So it was through Aqua Minerale here that De Pasqua was making a little bit of time, and that checks out if it's tough for John Payne.
Yeah, definitely. And that's that. If you remember also during the battle for the lead between he and Wisloff early on in the race, that's where Payne struggled big time. So no surprise there that that's what we're seeing De Pasqua make up so much ground. But then again, we also saw Payne catch up in the Variante to the Bassa to Tamburello areas. So we'll see what happens here as down up to 1.2 seconds separate them two for the lead. Of course, Payne looking for win number 4 on the season. He is the points leader. And he's only missed one race, but again, we're going to start to enter into the conversation of drops here in GT3 because we're nearing the end of the 10 race season. So drops are definitely going to have to be a question here shortly. 12 race season, I should say.
Two laps to go, and John Payne just weathers the storm a little bit. Now 1.5 seconds ahead of Remigio De Pasqua. As De Pasqua's charge levels off, John Payne finds his feet again. Just keeps enough space between himself and De Pasqua. Pole sitter Ragnar Wisloff 6 seconds back in 3rd place. Then in 4th and 5th, Bruce Granheim had a poor lap somewhere. Mike Grandy has therefore gotten closer to him. It's not been fault and worry free for these two, but they managed to hold on to 4th and 5th, even if they haven't matched the pace of our leading trio, Payne, Wisloff and De Pasqua. Ricardo Alita, Pierre Binet are being caught by Eugene Clark back there, so there could still be a little bit of excitement coming to the final lap of this race. And it's never ending for 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th as well. That's what everyone wants out of 60-plus racing adventures. If they can't win, then they just want to race, like you're seeing in some of these battles in multiple positions through the field.
And that's half the fun of racing, to say the least. You know, get out there, run some fast laps as your leader's coming out of Ravassa, heading down Bassa, and that gap's open up to 1.7 seconds, so it might be too little too late for De Pasqua if everything stays the same down the line. Final lap of this race, so now this battle for 4th between Grandy, I should say between Granheim and Grandy, and that's going to heat up here as they'll come down to take that white flag.
This battle between the drivers whose names start with GRA, and they've got to settle it on this lap. Lap 23 of the race. Oh, and Binet and Alita will have to settle it as well. Alita's defending into Tamburello. Up the top of the screen, John Payne just keeping his 1.5 second margin, growing it to 1.6 over John Payne. Bruce Granheim in the grey Corvette, or is it sheet metal? Is it battleship? Going to try to keep his positions there. Last time through Aqua Minerale will perhaps be a relief for the race leader John Payne. The clock expires 40 minutes plus this last half of a lap for John Payne to try to extend his championship lead in 60-plus Racing Adventures GT3 League. De Pasqua will keep the pressure on until the very last and has closed down to 1.2 seconds. It's this middle sector where De Pasqua and his McLaren seem so sure-footed. John Payne needs to save a little bit of fuel. If he's going to cough to the line, he could be in trouble. It's down underneath a second. The checkered flag isn't too far out of the final corner. It's at the second of the right-hand kinks, right up there. Barney has the checkered flag, and he has it for the race winner, John Payne, from 3rd on the grid. De Pasqua following him home within 1 second. Ragnar Wisloff will come home in 3rd to complete that podium, but does Granheim have enough fuel? Surely he does. Mike Grandy is right in behind him to make our top 5. And don't look away from 6th, 7th, and 8th either.
No, that's a great battle as well as they come down to the stripe. Lita's going to take that over Bennett and Eugene Clark. So great battle for those positions. And of course, across the line as well, Franz Josef Stum waiting on David Riley as well to round out your top 10 in the number 14 as he'll come down and cross that line. And that's your top 10 so far.
You'll have, David Riley, Wally Molesby, Richard McClure will be next, and Steve O'Malley. Bruce Poole has pulled away from JC Hay and Jerry Kerr. Peter Holstrom brought his Ferrari a little hot down into Ravazza, and Gianni Rispaldo will be the last driver to finish. Here we go. JC Hay just ahead of Jerry Kerr, Peter Holstrom, and Gianni Rispaldo there. Your last 4 drivers in constant contact the whole way through the final couple of laps of this race, so that's awesome for them. And it completes the race. And these are the results. Fastest lap went to John Payne very early on, so I think a lot of them suffered with the heat building up in the tyres if lap 2 was the fastest lap of the race, and then they sort of lost pace from there on. John Payne won by 0.8 of a second as well over Remigio de Pasqua, Ragnar Wisloff in third, and then the battle from the first lap to the very final lap, Bruce Granheim and Mike Grandy incredibly equally matched between the two of them. Ricardo Alita, his tyres falling away, he held on to 6th, ahead of Pierre Bennett, who gained 1 position, Eugene Clark, who gained 2, Franz Josef Stum and David Riley completing the podium. Wally Molesby 11th, Richard McClure started from 17th and in the end finished 12th, ahead of Steve O'Malley, Bruce Poole, JC Hay, Jerry Kerr, Peter Holstrom and Gianni Rispaldo. Look at those times on the column there and see just how close it was for these drivers who really had to bring their best game to the back half of the race. We'll get to third place driver Ragnar Wisloff, who will come have a chat with Jeremy Scott.
Ragnar, first of all, congratulations, third place. You had a lock on the first half of the race. Let's talk a little bit about that and what happened just before your pit stop.
Okay. Well, in the beginning, it was quite a bit of a battle between John and I. I think we both knew that he was a bit quicker, and he was trying what he could to get past, but he didn't quite make it. So, and then my issue today has been that I have a brand new wheel. It came in today, and the thing was coming apart. The quick release. I obviously hadn't screwed it well enough together, so I turned the wheel, and it was 5 degrees until it, translated into turning into the wheelbase. So when I got to the these 2 mountains at the top of the track in that chicane, the thing just turned a little too late. So I spun. Oh well, it happens.
It happens, yeah. And the back end sometimes wants to see what the front end's looking at, but nonetheless, a solid recovery, third place. You were able to run by yourself for the second half of the race, so it was just a lot of hitting your marks, but all in all, not a bad race for you today.
No, it wasn't. And I think it's quite fitting that Remigio was P2. Italians should do well at this track, and he was very quick. I thought maybe I could, gain a little bit on him after the pit stops, but he was just too quick. I thought it would be, the probability of him catching John was probably much higher than me catching him.
Well, nonetheless, a great race for you. Anyone you want to thank?
Well, thank you guys. I mean, for you and David making making the fantastic productions, which is so important to our league. If anyone sees this and wants to join, then you can find us at our website 60plus.wisloff.no.
Ragnar Wisloff, 3-time race winner so far this season, finishes third. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, David, one thing about this series, of course, you and I both under 60 years old, we still see the camaraderie in the 60 plus racing adventures, and it's one of positivity. So if you are watching this, you are over 60, give it a shot, because we've seen in some of these races, it doesn't matter how you race, it just matters you get out there and race.
Yeah, and plenty of different styles of racing in 60 plus as well, with ARCA and NASCAR trucks, GT3, the Super Formula League, that's one of the longest running categories within 60 plus racing adventures. So there's certainly plenty to do. Ragnar Wisloff mentioned John Payne and Remigio de Pasqua there, and unfortunately first and second don't look like they're going to be able to join us post-race at Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. But our congratulations go to them, and what great racing they put on for us. We loved it. That's the house and the shed, and Steve Myers and Dale Jr. are there somewhere as we fly by and soon say goodbye to you. David Haynes here with Jeremy Scott, Ramiro in production for us, as we saw an amazing peek into GT3 League from 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Can't wait to bring you more 60 Plus Racing Adventures here on RaceSpotTV in the future as well. So make sure you're following us, and we'll see you then.